Okay. This is the perfect picture to start off with. Friends of mine know that I'm always looking for something, somewhere to go. And every one of us here is luckier than everybody else in the world because this is the best city for pictures. I just came back from LA. My son is out there. He's trying to be a producer. LA is not New York. It's not even close to New York. One thing it's good for is the Getty Museum, though. If you're out there, there are two Getty museums. One is built like an Italian villa, and I know I'm partial to that because I'm Italian. Actually, I'm only half Italian. I'm half Sicilian as well. So. And that Getty Museum is really worth seeing. And what it does for me is it gets me excited about art. Even though I'm not looking at photography, I'm looking at paintings, manuscripts, lithographs, sculpture. They're all the same. You know, you get excited when you see a magnificent sculpture. And that's what helps in photography. You get your juices flowing. And at the same time, the Josef Kadolka exhibit was there at the Big Getty. Now, the Big Getty is valuable on many points. It had, I think, a Rubens exhibit, which unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see. The Big Getty is architecturally so magnificent. And let's face it, architecture, contrary to what Ayn Rand said, I personally feel has lost her mind, it's a magnificent place to be because it's so beautifully built. And its gardens are magnificent. And the Josef Kadolka exhibit was there. For me, Josef Kadolka is the greatest living photographer. I mean, he's in our time. It's not like going back to Walker Evans, who's not of our time, is of the 40s. 40s and perhaps 50s. But Josef Kadolka is alive today. And I say that knowing that Robert Frank is still alive, and a giant, in my eyes. But Kadolka, there's something special. So if you get a chance, pick up one of his books, Gypsies, Exiles. He's got a bunch of them. Look at on Amazon. And they're reasonable. They're reasonably priced, at least I feel. And what I do is I buy two books. Actually, in Italian, that's two, not this. This is two. And so I buy two books. One that I can look at and study and absorb. And the second book, I keep it hermetically sealed. And in 10, 15 years from now, my kids will have it, and they'll be able to sell it for, oh God, beyond triple the price. Because books go up in value. Once they stop publishing these things, they go up. So that's just a suggestion. Now, what happened with this is a friend called me and he said, there's a Holi festival in New York City. I said, what's a Holi festival? He said, it's an Indian festival where these Indians dress in traditional garb and they throw this powder, this colored powder all over the place, you know, and all over you and stuff like that. And this is perfect for me. May not be for everybody. Not everybody has the same temperament. I'm going to stand up so Mel can see me. Sorry, Melly. No and I go in the middle of it. I've said this before, the American Indian believed that wherever they were was the center of the universe. I'll buy that. And that belongs to me. Wherever I am is the center of the universe. So I'm going in the middle of that thing, and nobody has a right to say, get out of here. And I'm going to be there. So I'm there. I'm in the middle of everything because I want to get close. Now, Greg sent me some pictures. One of the students here sent me some pictures. They were very nice. The sensibilities were terrific. The only problem was he was using a longer lens, and probably a zoom lens, like an 80 to 200. And for street photography, that's not the lens. You want to use a short lens, 21, 24, 28, 35. Now, Cartier-Bresson used a 50 quite a bit. For me, a 50 is a telephoto. It's just too big. I got to get closer than a 50. He stood back and observed things, and he did it brilliantly. But more like William Klein. I want to get right next to people. When I photograph a wedding, I'm in the middle of the dance floor. When my kids are playing football, I go in the middle of the game. I don't stand on the side like it's a Sports Illustrated assignment using a big lens. I go in the middle of the game with a short lens. And the kids are always saying, oh, come on, Mel, you're going to get hit. I played football. I've been hit before. So, you know, I know what to do. And if you treat me as if I were the referee, you know, you avoid the referee. So avoid me. If you don't avoid me, that's my problem, because I asked to be here. So if you want to photograph kids, become one. And get on their level. If they're playing marbles on the ground, you're on the ground. You're not standing up, oh, isn't that adorable? You get down. You want to be on their level. People do that with animals all the time. They go, oh, you got to see my dog, and they take a picture standing up. Look the dog in the eye. That's where you got to be, and close. Okay, so here, I get close. And I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. Someone asked Dorothea Lange. How many people know who Dorothea Lange is? That's quite a few. That's good, too, as a matter of fact. You do, too. And what happened to your hat? Oh, all right, good. Dorothea Lange, I say this pridefully, was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, where I spent most of my childhood in the Hoboken YMCA boxing or playing basketball or just running around like crazy. And I didn't live that far from the Y. She was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. And can you name one other photographer who was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, who's a giant?
Stieglitz.
Oh, you've been cheating, haven't you? You've been reading, haven't you? Well, that helps. That's it, Alfred Stieglitz. I've just named two giants, not mediocre photographers. These are two giants. And I have talked to the mayor, Dawn Zimmer, a number of times, saying, you got a road named after Frank Sinatra. You can't name, you know, a little plaza after Stieglitz or Dorothea Lange? The United States postage stamps did. They put them both on stamps, commemorative stamps. Anyway, Dorothea Lange was asked, how do you get so close and not be noticed? And somewhat flippantly, and I don't think she is flippant, but she said, I put on my cloak of invisibility. One day, I was in Hoboken, and this is after I was a kid and just learning photography. I was in a curio shop, you know, a little second-hand shop, and I'm walking around. I look in the back and I see something that grabs my interest, and I walk back there, and there's this cloak hanging on a hook. I take it off and I put it on. I said, wow, what a great fit. And I look at it and I look on the inside and it says, property of D. Lange. There's my cloak of invisibility. I walked out of the shop. I never paid for it. Nobody saw me. So I know that's an easy answer, but you develop your own style, your own technique of becoming unnoticed. A big guy like you, that's trouble, but you can do it. So do it. You've got to get close. Robert Capa said, if you think you're close enough, move in a step. Ernst Haas said, the best lens you have or your feet. You want a wide angle, back up. You want a telephoto, move in. Get your fixed lens and just work within it. Just from the parking lot to here, I shot like 20 pictures. And what the heck is there to shoot? It was this bicycle, and this happens, I guess, only in New York, because I've never seen this in Paris, but I've seen it in New York. They disassemble the whole thing. You know, the whole thing is, oh God, what a puzzle that is, putting that thing back together again. And the guy's helmet was there and everything. To me, that's an interesting photograph. It may not be to you, but it is to me. Because that thing had a presence. And if you, when you leave here and you're walking around, look for things that you normally wouldn't necessarily pay attention to that may have a presence. And I know that's a poetic term, but they're there. And there was another one that was a full bike that was tied up in an interesting manner. For me, again, interesting manner. You may walk past it and say, I don't see what the heck's so interesting in that. I did. And that's all that's important, is that it's important to me. And the same thing for you. You stop, you take a picture, somebody says, what are you doing? You're doing something you want to do, and that's all that counts. You know, it's important to you, whatever it is that you're shooting may have a presence. Okay, let's go back to these pretty girls. Now, let me tell you something. This is not for the faint-hearted, because I'm getting the hell kicked out of me in here. You know, kids are throwing dust all over me. And again, you know, if you want to reach out and touch that kid's phone, you can do that. That's how close I have just put you, the viewer. This is my choice. I take you along with me. Oh, Greg says he wants to come with me and follow me, and you don't have to follow me. Just look at, see what I'm doing here and do the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that you have to copy what I'm doing. You do that for a while. I did that. I looked at Cartier-Bresson, Cortez, you know, Walker Evans, all the early giants, and I did exactly what they did, or at least I tried to. And eventually you get to a point where you can get off their shoulders and you walk by yourself and you develop your own style. Now, and the funny thing about this picture is when I took it, I didn't think much of it because it happens like that. You don't have time to dwell on this. It happens so quickly, so you have to be quick. And you just hope. I think it was Diane Arbus who said, what you think you got, you missed, and what you missed, what you think you got, you missed, what you don't remember, you got. And I don't remember this being, you know, something that really grabbed me. I just shot real quickly, and that happens. So shoot quickly. This, you got time, you know, she's there, and you're standing there, you know, waiting for something to happen, and you're shooting all the while. I don't shoot much color. I converted this to black and white, but it looked better in color, so I went back to it. Same thing here. How do you shoot an Indian festival and not shoot in color? There's got to be some color. And this is the stuff they're throwing around, all this, I don't know what it's called, but it's a powdery dust. And one of the things I did with this, and you'll think of it, you know, I wanted to take a picture of the girl. But if I took her outside, you know, there are 5,000 kids running around, the background is different. So I moved her inside one of the tents where you get nice, soft, even light, you know, and a reasonably non-distracting background. That's what you can look like. See, that's the problem. There are two problems here. Actually, Matt, can you knock off about 40 pounds in Photoshop on that photo? Yeah. The other thing is, and you better brace yourself, all you guys that are married, Because when your wife sees that shirt, you'll be sleeping on a sofa for about a week. So that happens. It's a throwaway, but who cares? I got pictures that I really wanted, and so I lost a Tommy Hilfiger shirt. I think most of these were taken with a 24 millimeter lens and on the Canon 5D Mark III, which I love because it gives me a lot of latitude with the ISO. I push my ISO. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I have been as high as 25,000 ISO. I did that at a wedding where the light was really dim, and it worked. You know, this new technology is magnificent. But out here, you know, I'm shooting, and it depends. The sun was going in and out, and then it gets overcast. So I'll go up to 4,000 ISO. A lot of people are afraid of doing that because, number one, they say, oh, it gets too grainy. I was raised with Tri-X. I was born in grain, you know. This is what grain was all about. And when you push it to 1600 in Tri-X, you got grain. You got grain and contrast. What do I care? I care about the picture. I don't necessarily care that it's too grainy or it's not too grainy or it's not grainy enough. And I don't find the grain, if you will, or noise as today it's called, objectionable. As long as I get that moment, that's the thing that's important to me. The importance here is the conversation unspoken between the girl and the guy. That's what's important. I don't know if this works or not. I still haven't made up my mind. But when I saw this kid, I said, there's only one thing I got to do. I got to put you right by a sycamore tree. Because, you know, he's got the same texture as this sycamore tree. So, again, I want to be part of these conversations without getting pushed aside or what are you doing or why are you doing this. And when you go to these festivals, nobody cares. That's the beauty of this, the Easter parade on Fifth Avenue, which if you miss, you're missing a great opportunity. The Mermaids Parade in Brooklyn, you know, the Puerto Rican Day Parade, the Columbus Day Parade, you know, the Gay Pride Parade. All these parades are just ripe with photos. And many of them, the Easter parade is different because it's wide open. But some of these parades, the best part of the parades are at the end when it's all breaking down because you can't get in the middle of the street while the parade is going on. The cops won't allow it. So I go to the end of the parade where it's all breaking down and everything is happening down there. It's really wonderful. And we're fortunate, too, today with today's cameras. You can push the heck out of this stuff up to 10,000, 12,000 ASA, and you're shooting at night, and you're still coming up with really glorious photographs. Oh, cheer up, kid. Anyway, this, for me, is very dear to me on a lot of levels. Number one, Jersey City, Hoboken. You know, this is where I hung out as a kid. Used to play a lot of basketball, not that I was any good, but a lot of basketball in Jersey City. And you see that piling on the right-hand side. That's about 20 feet off the water. And I asked these two kids, there are two pilings, you can't see two of them, but they're right next to one another. I asked the kids, I said, look, if you guys will get up there and just dive off, I can get a great shot of you and the World Trade Center, et cetera, et cetera. They go, okay, yeah, but we're only going to do it once, mister. We're only going to do it once. They said that in Spanish, but So I said, okay, once. Why only once? He said, because we don't know what's in there. Oh, yeah. You mean like an abandoned car that somebody stripped and pushed in there? A dead horse? Who the heck knows? So I said, okay, guys, I'll take it. I got one shot at it. One shot. And I was lucky. I was lucky to get it. These guys are still down there. You go down there today and you'll say this guy and a whole bunch of other fishermen, that's their whole life. I don't think the real reason for fishing is to catch fish. It's to be out, and let your mind wander and just think of a million other things besides work and your wife and your kids and how much money you're not making, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're lucky, you catch a flounder, or crabs. And he's still alive, so I guess that they've cleaned up that river. This is a piece of steel down in Jersey City that people put up little memories. I love this one because, it's not a great photograph, but it means something to somebody. And they put this little prayer up there, or this little remembrance, this little poem. This is that piece of steel I was talking about. It came from the World Trade Center. And it's very organic because people leave stuff there. They leave crucifixes, angels, little mementos. They'll write things on different things. Now, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for opening my big mouth, but those geniuses down at Jersey City and the Parks Department have cleaned it up. There's nothing on there anymore except the flag. That's all that's important is the flag, not the people. Not the people who leave things there that, are pained by this experience. Jersey City Parks Department, I guess, wants things to look clean and neat. Shut your phones off, will you? Sistine Chapel, the painter. I am. Call me back later. You've just interrupted a magnificent speech that I'm giving at where are we? Oh, B&H Photo. All right, so you'll call me back, right? And don't ever call me here again. I have absolutely no idea who the hell that was. I just hope it wasn't a client, because I'm dead then. Well, anyway, that's my feeling about the Parks Department in Jersey City. I wish they'd leave this alone and let the people express themselves and let them get their feelings out. I mean, they've been hurt a hell of a lot more than the Parks Department has. I don't shoot it in color often, but you'll see how much it's been cleaned up. But it still makes a nice photograph. And here's something, because it was just about to rain, and it was misty, and there were a few drops falling. And this is where patience and generally in street photography, you have to act quickly, because if you don't act quickly, you're going to miss it. It's like a Marine trying to take a picture of this here. You got to be quick. You got to get it on the first shot. So, but here, I got time. That steel's not going anywhere. The flag's not going anywhere. It may blow out a little bit every once in a while. But I waited for the guy with the purple umbrella to come by. I wanted that one little element there. And I think it helps the photo. Without the guy, I don't think it's the same photo, but anyway. And this is important. Photoshop is an art form. You have to work on that to be good in color and black and white. Black and white's a little more difficult. But I worked on this for at least an hour to get this exactly where I wanted. That's a detail of that same thing before the Parks Department cleaned it up. Look at those cigarettes. You remember those cigarettes, Pall Mall? There's an old-timer for you. This is what I mean by getting in the middle of things. These guys are terrific. They all speak Spanish. Some of them spoke English. You know, and I just point to the camera, okay, okay, yeah, sure. And I go in the middle of it. And I bring you with me. You're with me here. You know, if I have a long lens on and I'm standing 15, 20 feet back, you're not with me. We're looking at a flat composition. Here, this has depth. This is a little hard to see here. Oh, you see it better there on the thing. You see the Empire State Building. It's one of the few times that I shot in that direction. Normally I'm shooting in the direction of the World Trade Center, but this time I couldn't help. The guy's carrying this clumsy contraption. And what was that? Well, what I did was, this is one of the few shots I set up. I rarely shoot stuff set up. I said, okay, I want you guys to get in that car, get on and do what you want. Sit where you want, stand where you want, I don't care, but just get over there. So they all got over there, and it was pretty easy. You know, the kid in the back, I said, move up just a little bit so you're not blocking the other kid, and that's it. And the other thing is I don't want smiling in my pictures. Not because I want sad pictures, but a smile is usually forced. You know, how many times you go to take a picture of a kid and the kid goes like that automatically, or your aunts or your uncle, everybody's like that. I don't mind laughter. Laughter I love, that's spontaneous, and you get a nice photograph. But when you got everybody going like that, it's artificial. So I say, okay guys, I just want you to look at the camera. I don't say look sad, look morose, just look at the camera. I want the countenance to be revealed through their face, okay? Or is that redundant? From a sociological point of view, architectural standpoint, anthropological standpoint, and an artistic standpoint, this picture succeeds. This is what Jersey City looks like now, shot with a long lens. It's rare, but I wanted them to look like a bunch of Lego blocks, and the only way I could do it was to zoom in a little bit and crop it, and play with it in Photoshop to darken the sky. And you know, there's a lot you can do. There are a lot of choices you can do. You remember the old days when you shot film, you brought your film to the lab processed it, gave you a contact sheet, you marked your contact sheet off, and you went back and you say, here, make me an 8x10 or an 11x14 of this. And they're making the judgments on what to dodge, what's to burn. You're not making those judgments. They are. You know, occasionally a good photographer will darken certain areas on the contact sheet, crop certain areas, you know, open up certain areas. Those are instructions they would give with a grease pencil on the contact sheet to the processor. But it's still his choice. Now it's your choice. Too light, your fault. Too dark, your fault. Not cropped enough, your fault. So that's why I'm saying the darkroom is an artistic process. So learn it, and learn it well. And the best way to learn it is keep doing it. I was lucky. I spent 30 years in the darkroom. So I know what a good print should look like. And I just applied those same sensibilities in Photoshop. I want to add contrast, I want to knock down contrast, whatever. Those are all my choices. Again, this was a personal assignment down in Jersey City. And I went down to Liberty State Park. And man, that's a great place to go for photographs because everybody's there. Not only that, but you need a Spanish to English dictionary, a Korean to English dictionary, a Japanese to English dictionary, and the Italian one I don't need. That I got. A Portuguese. They got every ethnic group known to mankind. It's wonderful. This is what America is all about, and it's all right there in Liberty State Park. You know, this is easier than it looks, you know, because one twist of the ankle and you're in the water. And you know, sometimes you look at your pictures and you see mirror images. You got the Twin Towers there, and you got this there. You got twin arms like that. Now pay attention to this. For those of you who don't know how to read it, I will read it to you. Go into the arts. I'm not kidding. The arts are not a way to make a living. They're a very human way of making life more bearable. Practicing an art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow for heaven's sake. Sing in the shower, dance to the radio, tell stories, write a poem to a friend, even a lousy poem. Do it as well as you possibly can, and you will get an enormous reward. You will have created something. And this camera, you are all so fortunate because you can all do your own poems with the push of a button. It's that simple these days. You know, 25 years ago, photography was a bit of a challenge. You know, you had this noisy thing with a mirror going choo-choo, and you had a light meter, you had to take a light reading, and then you had 4 different types of film in your fanny pack to say, well, what the heck should I use today? And, you know, should I push this film? Shouldn't I push it? Should I shoot in color? You don't have those problems now. One thing I don't want is I don't want my head filled with a lot of garbage. I want to be able to think when I get outside so I don't have to think. I want to feel. Forget about thinking. You want to feel. You set your camera to where it's supposed to be, and you're a gunfighter. You're ready to move, and you move quickly. Jersey City, that same place before. I don't take many landscapes, but when I do, you know, it's one thing because my daughter does this, and I love this kid. She's a spectacular kid. She loves taking pictures. She went to Greece and she took 8,000 pictures. But all she does is point the camera at things. If I shot this shooting at New York City before that tower, that Freedom Tower is up now, with the boat, and the thing I was interested in was the 2 different boats. One is a giant thing with 5,000 Europeans on it, and a sailboat crossing like 2 ships in the night. That interested me, plus the skyline. But that's not enough. I had to make you feel that you were there. And I did that by including the railing. Because now you can feel that, well, I can reach out, touch that railing. I wanted that frame of reference. Otherwise, you're just pointing it at a scene. Try and make the scene a little more interesting. One of the things I love doing, or I love happening to me, is if I'm at a wedding somewhere and I'm taking pictures and all of a sudden someone, moves their hand in front of the camera or they block in front of the camera and they turn and I go, oh, I'm sorry. No, don't be sorry. You'd be surprised how wonderful some of those pictures can be. They're pure accidents, but who cares? I don't care if it's an accident. I'm interested in making pictures. And if that works, it works. Again, you get what I said before about mirrors. You get twin things going on here with the arms and the World Trade Center. And there's a tension in that guy's body that is it's just foretelling what may come. And it certainly did come. Again, remember, you're not only a photographer, you can also be a poet with these things. So think of yourself as that. And don't let anybody tell you you're not. Don't pay any attention. Well, give them my name. I'll take care of it. I don't do it very often, but I am attracted to shapes and shadows and architecture. And this first picture, I'm driving home on the way back from New York. I'm shooting this from the car. I'm leaning outside the driver's side window trying to get this wonderful shadow, and then I get it in Photoshop and I start playing with it and darkening and lightening. I just like all the shapes and all the geometry in there. The same thing with that. There's a certain sense of mystery about it. And if Man Ray had taken this back in the 40s, this would be a great photo. Unfortunately, he didn't take it. I took it, and nobody knows who the hell I am. The same thing here. There's so much clutter in here. There's so much going on. And you've got that modern sculpture behind these two modern people here. And all these other shapes that you don't know, they're indistinguishable. There's just so much going on. So try and make order out of chaos. These guys break my heart. This is not a composite. One shot. One shot. I don't know how to do a double exposure on that, so I can't. It's one shot. And nobody pays attention to it in New York. I mean, you guys walk out, you look in the windows, and you go, okay. You keep walking. No, there are photographs in these windows, so pay attention to them. Same thing here. It's a million things going on. One way. Get those carriages that the mayor's trying to get rid of. This is all one window, and I got 3 photographs out of one window. Again, to me, it's a lonely moment. Here's this poor guy, he's probably an immigrant, and I say that only because I heard him speak later. And that's his life, is pushing this cart like 4 blocks, opening it up and standing there for 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, closing it up, bringing it back. That's his whole life. Making some money selling hot dogs and pretzels. Again, just a reflection in the window. This was during remember when they made the Super Bowl Boulevard right around Times Square, and they blocked it off, and just all kinds of things were happening there. I don't do this often because I don't think that creatively, to be honest with you. It didn't work until I reversed the tones and made it a negative and printed it as a negative. And if you're paying attention, and you really have to be quick paying attention, you got the guy on the bottom and the woman up top, and they're both doing the same thing. And you're lucky to get that. You know, that bus is moving, and so is that thing up there, so you're lucky to get that configuration. There's a lot going on in there, isn't there? Can you still see me, Melly? Okay. Yeah, it's a self-portrait with two of my friends. I have no idea who they are. And here's where I remember I told you about the smiling. The minute I put up the camera, they both went like that. And I can't talk to them because I'm outside, and they go. So they understood what I was saying, and that made the photo. It's a much more interesting photograph than the one I took before them, where they're grinning like, you know, whatever. This is the Mermaids Parade, where everything goes and anything goes, even light flares. You know, I'll take it. I don't know about you and your computers, but I always try and put up something interesting on mine because I love photographing the computer with a photograph. Now, not everybody is a street photographer. You know, maybe 15 or 20 of this whole big group, you know, is crazy enough to walk up to strangers and just start taking pictures in their faces. But there are plenty of other pictures to be taken. This is at the Met. All it was for me was light. I looked at that light and I said, that is magnificent light. And if you want to really learn about lighting, study paintings, especially Caravaggio. He's the guy that will teach you how to light. This was taken from atop the USTA Stadium, the tennis stadium in Flushing Meadow. I went up there to take a picture of the court and players playing. And I looked to my left, and there's this wonderful image. And it's pretty much a straight shot. I didn't do much in Photoshop with it because I didn't need to. But the one thing I needed was that plane. That plane was really the key to that photograph. Otherwise, it's an interesting photograph. But the key, it really adds another element, and it suggests that you look to the left and you say, geez, where the hell are the Twin Towers? Those were always the beacons for me whenever I was in Brooklyn and I was lost, and I said, God, how the hell do I get back to Manhattan? You used to look for the towers, and you go, okay, and you just head in that direction. That was fine, and then those robbers robbed us. But I needed the plane, so LaGuardia is maybe 15 feet away, so I waited, and I just knew there'd be a plane coming. And the other thing is the trail that it leaves behind is interesting because of the humidity. Again, I love shooting in windows. You know, this is Saks Fifth Avenue, a mannequin, and a bunch of people waiting for a bus. One of the things, and I know I'm profiling here, but the Koreans are very tolerant, you know. And here I am with a 24 millimeter lens, and I'll use Rabbi as the thing here, and I'm just like this. I'm that close to them, and they pay no attention to me. And yet I come up with what I think is an interesting moment. This is my favorite. This is my favorite. Pops and Cuz. I mean, is that a remembrance for you? I'm sure he was from Staten Island, where the rest of my relatives are. And, you know, there's no way you're going to make fun of a guy like that. Look at the size of that arm, you know? Pops and Cuz. I mean, they're just... Shave your head and get one of these, you know? You know what you can do with this? You have a couple of hairs straight up and you put some glue on it or whatever the kids put on them, it goes straight. You could have a sundial, you know? Anybody say, I beg your pardon, what time is it? Let's see, take a look. Oh, 4:15. Good, thank you. There you go. I love to get these guys working because they're really skillful. You know, you may or may have your own opinions about tattoos and stuff like that, but these guys are pretty good drawers. I don't think they're great artists, but they can draw. This guy's interesting because not only did he have tattoos, he had these things embedded in his skin, you know. You know, and I think, you know, the what is it, the left arm, you know, he could play that, you know, with just the one hand, you know, something like that. The great thing about tattoo conventions is they all want to be photographed. They all want their art to be seen. So you don't have any trouble with some guy saying, hey, what are you doing taking a picture of me? I love this. The guy who's got his hands there like this. I love the Boris Karloff guy up in the Frankenstein up in the corner there. Madison. They named an avenue after this girl's arm. Do you know that? And I'm also curious as to why they select certain things. You know, like the future is now. I mean, that's his philosophy. He's a classic, isn't he? That was not at a convention. That was at the Mermaids Parade. And
I bet you didn't ask why he did that.
Sorry?
I bet you didn't ask why he did that one.
I didn't have to. Yeah. Well, the other thing I like about this is I love the shadow, the shape of the shadow. I find very interesting. This is interesting because they're not using the traditional or the modern stapling machine or tattooing machine. This goes back into Polynesia, where they tap this piece of wood that has ink on it, that they dip in ink, and they make their designs like that. It takes forever to do that, but supposedly, you know, and the other guys are really holding that skin taut so nothing spills out. Well, this is where you have to pay attention. This picture is about the woman in the background. To me, I find her more interesting than the foreground, is in that she's looking off quizzically. he's running out of room. Now, here's where you have your choices here, because they have fluorescent lights in here. And I didn't want that fluorescent light. I could have left it at the exposure that I was originally shooting at, but I wanted it to look more like something that Caravaggio might have lit, where only the subject and everything else falls off a stop or two stops. And the light is all concentrated in that one little area. And again, going back to that other one, is you really have to pay attention to your exposure here, because this is an exposure not of the camera's choice, of your choice. You know, there are many times I go into situations like this, I just put it on P for program and let the camera go away, because I know it's within the range I want it to be. But this one I made a distinct choice here. The same thing here. I increased the depth of field because I wanted the girl in the foreground to be sharp. If I had kept it at the original depth of field, only he would have been sharp, she would have been blurred, and it wouldn't have made any sense. I don't think, anyway. Vincent Price, in case you're wondering. You know, a lot of these people are really obsessed with Hollywood stars. This fella, I think this was his daughter or one of his family members. Same thing here. There's some really interesting portraits. You know, and the canvas is the skin. This guy's wife was a real dog. Don't laugh. That's the worst joke I can come up with. Nessun perdono. It's Latin for no one is saved. I don't know what he means by that, but he's obviously in hell and he's trying to get out, and the angel is cutting the rope. It just made such a wonderfully interesting photograph. And the guy's body, you know, he's got such an interesting shape to his body. Again, this photo is made in Photoshop. There's a lot of other stuff going on in this photo that I took out because I felt it too distracting. I just wanted those three people to be in there, and it's a quiet photograph. If I left all that other stuff in there, there's noise. And I don't mean technical noise, it's just a lot of junk going on. So I got rid of it. This is the same guy. You know, and it almost had to be shot in color. That's fascinating, isn't it? A guy would choose something like that. This one my son took. And when I saw it, I said, you know, there's not enough, Anthony. Let's try and fool around with it. So I went into Photoshop and I solarized it. That, to me, made it a little more interesting. This was at the Mermaids Parade, and I asked the individual that had the hand there like that, I said, let's find something dark that we can put it on. It's like having a dark backdrop, because it just made the concentration right there. This is my favorite. This is a guy named Matt. I meet him every year at the U.S. Open. He's one of the workmen that constructs the kids' day for Arthur Ashe. And I saw these tattoos, and he's got, you know, he's got the Taxi Driver and Pacino, and on the back he's got Hannibal Lecter and Jack Nicholson, you know, on his calf. Just so interesting. And he's a nice guy. He's a real sweet guy. I'm actually learning how to use this damn thing. How many of you remember Robert Capa's photograph of the Spanish soldier getting shot and his back goes, on the ball, the rifle goes up? This kind of reminiscent of that. It's catching somebody in mid-fall. This is my son playing tennis, and I have no idea what he was doing at this point. But, I just shot real quickly, and you ask questions later. Get the photograph. And this shows you how talented my son is. He taught his racket to follow him home. Yes, believe it or not. He's captain of his tennis team. He hit with Martina Navratilova at the U.S. Open. He's a good tennis player. And now he's in Hollywood, and he's attempting to be a producer, which he's pretty good at. And within 5 years, forget my name, Anthony DiGiacomo. Remember that one, because he'll be good. Here he is here on the left wearing the Duke thing. And I used to love to go to his matches. Shooting forehands and backhands, it's all pretty easy after a while. I mean, you get it down pretty simply. It's what happens after that when the kids break and they're putting their other clothes on and just grabbing interesting moments of the kids sitting down or just doing nothing. Now, that's interesting. I told him rather than slam his racket on the ground like the pros do, and they break it, and they got to, I got to pay $300 to get a new racket. I said, find another way of venting your anger. Bite the net. Go ahead. Bite the net. And then his mother screams at me because she used to be a dental hygienist. Imagine what that net does to your teeth. This is Anthony when he's 6, I think. He's at the U.S. Open. He's looking through the windscreen. He's got his face pressed up against it. And here's the real big irony. 11 years later, he's on that exact court hitting with Martina Navratilova, arguably the greatest tennis player of her generation or of any generation. And here he is looking at that. So I find that a coincidence indeed. And these are the things that interest me in tennis. Not like the forehands and backhands, because I can teach you how to do. Don't wake the rabbi. He says, he's all right. He's fine. God, am I boring. Anyhow, this is what interests me, is these moments in between what's going on. These little existential positions. This is a setup. Guy's name is Battistone, and a hell of a nice guy. He's using a very unusual racket. You see the V grip there? And when he hits a backhand, he's got hand on one of the V shapes and one of the other shapes. It's an unusual racket, but most unusual was the way he served. He's from California, so maybe he gets it from that. But he would toss the ball way up and out front into the court, and he would wind up going into the court, hitting that. He's 6'4", so within a step or two, he's already up at the net. And it's a very, very unusual way to serve a tennis ball. So what I did was I had a 20D with a pop flash. I didn't want to make this fancy. I got down real low and had him do this like 10 or 15 times and just took it. I only want one shot. You don't know I shot 10 or 15. I tell you that, but that's what happens. You don't get it on the first shot. Again, candid moments. These are the things that really excite me for tennis. Same thing here. What's going on? There's this great sense of mystery in here. No mystery there, Charlie. This is an old friend who has passed on. Unfortunately, his name was Vitas Gerulaitis, and a very, very good tennis player and a great guy, and had suffered a mysterious accident. So anyway, this is at Forest Hills. No, it wasn't at Forest Hills. I don't think so. This is my son, and he's playing doubles with his doubles partner. And my messy desk. And I always find it makes an interesting picture because I change the notices and things like that. And the desk gets messier or less messy, and pictures are behind it. This shows you how hard Kathy works for the New York Times. She's one of the hardest working pros I know. And I'm not so interested in the player as much as I am her and her working. Anybody name all three of these guys? Let me see a hand. Who said O'Connor? You just... Yeah, you left. That's what, see, the Lord's punishing you for leaving your camera at home. Yeah. Right. And who's the third guy? Bjorn Borg. It's Borg, Connors, and McEnroe. And the success in this picture lies in the photographer. I take credit for this because John and Jimmy don't necessarily get along. They don't hate one another, but so to get a picture of John with his hand on Jimmy's shoulder, smiling.
That's because he has a hurt knee.
I'm sorry?
That's because his knee was hurt.
Who? Jimmy's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's gonna have it iced. This is Martina Navratilova and her dogs, and they're all chasing water. There's a spray of water. Nobody's going to guess that.
Nope.
Sorry?
Is that Yannick Noah?
No. No, Yannick Noah is black.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, it's your white balance that threw you off. His nickname is Guga, and he's Brazilian. His name is Gustavo Kuerten. One of my son's favorite players. He was a great player. He won the French Open a bunch of times. Again, like I said, the interesting moments for me are at a tennis tournament are when the players are human beings, not just athletes, great athletes hitting forehands, backhands, and jumping all over the place. It's these moments like this, these tense moments where he's probably involved in a tight match and he's thinking and he's concerned about what he's going to be doing next. Who said Rafa? Give her another candy. Very good. You know that Rafa is not left-handed, he's right-handed? He's right-handed. Uncle Tony made him a lefty playing tennis because he knew he'd have an advantage, which he does. Who's that? That's the guy that's better than Rafa. Very good. That's Roger. Again, if I'm going to shoot tennis, I want to make it interesting. Peeking through the lens like that is far more interesting than just getting a straight shot of him hitting a forehand or a backhand or whatever. Dickie Stockton, one of the great old-timers, has a win over Jimmy Connors at the Philadelphia Open, or the Philadelphia Masters, I think it was. Sorry, Dick. What's your name again? Dick Stockton, that's right. I love Venus. She's so poised. She's so different than her sister. I'm not saying better or worse. I'm just saying I like her. I love her poise. Now, street photography, It doesn't end at the street. You go in the house, you're having a party, it's a confirmation, whatever. Have your camera ready. Be ready to take pictures. You're a photographer all the time, not just out on the streets. You know, you get a wonderful little conversation like that between the father and son. There's a guy who grew a whole bunch of new legs as he crushed his sister on the slide. I'm in my car. I'm going back to Jersey. There's this poor old woman living alone with her dog in a brownstone. You know, you see this kind of thing more in Paris than you do here, and I'm not being flippant. You know, you see lovers all the time. Again, this is a picture that didn't work until I put it in Photoshop and then solarized it, and then I still don't know if it works, but it's a little more interesting than the original. Same thing, a variation on that same theme. Okay, you ready for this, guys? 25,000 ASA.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Those are my two cousins, Jake and Emma, and they're dancing, and they had these lights that were normal, and then all of a sudden they switched them to these red lights. I was down 4 stops at that point. And once they got to those low-level red lights, I'm saying, what the? So I raised it up to 10,000, didn't work. 12,000 didn't work. 20,000 didn't work. 25,000, it worked, but barely, because I'm only at 250, and I'm wide open. And 250, they're dancing. You got to wait until they come to a point in the dance that stops, and then they can go back. And I must have shot 40 pictures and got one. But that one is all that matters. I didn't take this. My rotten kid did. Sorry, Anthony. Anyway, he's got a great eye. I love his eye, and I beg him all the time, take the camera, go in the city, take pictures. He took this up on Fifth Avenue. He says, Dad, I saw this one situation that I liked. He said, but it needed something, and I waited, and then this woman came by with a cigarette, and that was the whole thing. There are times where I see situations, and I go, it needs something. What is it that it needs? And hopefully somebody comes by, maybe a bike messenger or some old lady with a funny hat or something. You wait for those situations. This again, my son in Paris. This again is my son, and what he did here was he went against the light. You know, I would have shot it from the other end, but he shot it from the back, and it makes it much more dramatic. Again, this is my son, you know, he's taking a picture of his mother, but he doesn't want just an ordinary picture of his mother. It'd be easy, just walk up to her, take a picture, oh, Mom, I got a great picture. This is far more interesting. Backyard barbecue, just be ready, it'll happen. This is a studio in California. I can't remember where it was. But what I did was I moved, you know, my physical being to a certain point where that hubcap lined up with the girl's eye. That's the surrealism that I was hoping for. You know, and then you've got 3 clocks in there that make it something like Orson Welles would have constructed. My daughter down in Antigua. Again, backyard parties. Like I said, you want to photograph children, become one. Get in the middle of their games. If they chase you out, that's another story. But most kids won't. They'll just ignore you. They're concerned about their game. They're not concerned about you. Go to the Easter parade. Don't forget it. Don't miss it. Okay, you can photograph a kid's birthday party, but if you really want to make it interesting, do something like this. Get close to the ice cream, because you know that's where their attention is going to be. You know, I'm on my way home again. I'm doing what I'm not allowed to do. The Port Authority catch you doing that, they yell at you. But I couldn't miss that sky. I've got to get that sky. This is down in Antigua. A birthday party again. And remember, don't point the camera down. Get down. John's got it right. That kid's got it right. He's down. Again, just one shot, no double exposure, just one shot. If you had to take a portrait of New York City, there's your portrait. You know, the key is at any of these parties is for you to pay attention to what's going on. And you have to look. And remember before I said I didn't mind somebody interrupting the frame? That made the photo. There's some photographer with some scribbling on his hand. I love this picture. That other little boy that was shooting before, he took this. A friend of mine who's a bagpiper, and I didn't want just an ordinary shot of him playing the thing. I tried to come up with something a little more interesting. Oh, I love that kid. My cousin's wedding, and that's his mother, and I love the look on her face. I'm shooting the Indy 500. It's all about cars, right? Not about wolfmen or lycanthropy. I'm walking back to my car. I've got a camera around my neck. I see this guy, I grab the shot. I've got two other cameras, but the third camera is the short lens is on around my neck, and just grab the shot. So you're always ready, no matter where you are, man. You know, no matter what you're doing, you got to be ready, because you don't know when that's going to pop out. And this guy, all of a sudden, just jumped up, and went like that. I grabbed the camera and took the shot. This was a young kid that came to me. She's in college now. She was 14 years old when she first came into my gallery. And she made this book through my eyes. She had taken with a cell phone all the pictures. And I was staggered by this, because it proves what I've always said. It's not the camera that takes the picture. It's you. And this kid's doing this with a cell phone, and I got this $3,000 instrument. Now, that $3,000 instrument took this picture because, again, I'm shooting at 10,000 shutter speed. And look at how clean that is. It almost looks as if you took it with Panatomic X, or at least Plus X. You know, for those who don't know what that is, that's the old film days. Same thing here. This was all Tri-X down in Jersey City. You know, and you know, I tend to be reasonably liberal in my politics, but I always hear, you know, oh, those poor kids, you know, they've got a tough neighborhood, and you know, they got this, they got that. And these kids always found something to play. I did anyway, and this was their toy. This is what I grew up with too. You know, just a lot of concrete. And I remember we were playing in the schoolyard, and it's all concrete, and the walls are concrete. And a friend of mine said to me, "If I didn't see you bleeding, I knew you had a bad game." And these are tough street kids. You know, that's so nice a picture, I repeated it. Remember I told you to get close? I was tired of these spray pictures, and I wasn't getting close enough, so I got a camera. I got an underwater camera, you know, disposable cameras. I went right in the middle of the thing and came up with that. Now, show you how these kids grew up. You see the wheels broken? Thing. Yeah, well, on both sides, but one's completely missing. And it's not like today. You know, if that happens today, you go to your mother, "Ma, we got to go to Kmart and get another whatever." "All right, we'll get another." Not these kids. They don't have the money to do that. You know, and there's that empty lot is where they played in. There's something kind of mysterious behind him with that kind of skull-like figure. Old Jersey City.
Old Jersey City.
Sorry?
I said that's pretty old Jersey. How old is
1980. And this is the kind of picture, and this is my influences. I think Cartier-Bresson would have taken something like that. I love it. You know, the only thing you can say after looking at this is saying, what the heck is going on? You know, and that's what I want. I want you to say that, because then I succeeded in involving you. You know, it's a lovely snapshot. You know, that's about, but there's no sense of mystery in there. Now, I didn't take this. My cousin Louise DiGiacomo took this. And the thing I like about it so much is you can see her hand, you know, on the cell phone. You know, she's got it like this in the shadow. Again, I didn't take this. Martina Navratilova took this. She went to Africa and sent me all her stuff back, and I put it in Photoshop and played with it. She had some marvelous photographs. A wedding. Anybody know what a Holga is? Okay, a couple of people. Holga is a plastic camera, takes 120 film, has light leaks galore, and scratches, and all kinds of imperfection. A friend of mine's getting married. I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to shoot a lot with the big boy camera, but I'm going to take some shots with the Holga as well. I did, and this is what it came out looking like. It was better than all the other pictures. See, Chamber of Commerce welcoming a tourist in New York City. A simple shot, but pay attention. You know, look at shadows. Because you look at that and you go, geez, what the heck is that? Such an interesting shape. They're wonderful textures. So pay attention to your surroundings. That's all I'm saying. This happens all the time in New York City. You can't miss it, but you got to get down. You got to be laying down on your stomach. I love collecting stuff like this. I don't know if it's any art form, but I just like collecting stuff like that. Again, just a simple mannequin, but you've got all these reflections and these geometric shapes helping you out. I take a half a step, maybe a 3-inch step, I'm going to bump into this girl. That's how close I am. My daughter in Antigua again. How physical that photograph is. And unless you're in the middle of everything, you're not going to get photographs like this. If you're sitting on the couch and in the next room everybody's having a good time in a birthday party, and you sit there with a long lens and pick things off, it's not going to work. Get involved. Get close, like here. Again, no smiling, guys. Just look right at the camera. This whole picture is made by this guy over here in the corner. It's just that one little eye. I mean, that's pure luck. I'm not going to say, oh, that's skillful. I knew that was happening. Nonsense. You know the old saying, if you're good, you'll be lucky. The scale works here too, you know. I did that again. I liked that so much, I did it again. Wake up. Again, Christmas party, everybody's enjoying himself, but down the far end is the one woman feeding a child, and, you know, and there's a quiet acquiescence about her. Now, see, I can't shoot a wedding in color, because color is too distracting. You know, color becomes the subject. Here, the subject are the people. Remember before I was talking about my son found this one situation, he was just waiting for something to happen? Same thing here, I'm down the village, there's this wonderful mural with all these rock stars, and I'm saying, that's a great picture, but it needs something else. So I waited for people to come by. I was playing rugby in England, and the fog came in, and the pitch got fogged out. And these kids, these little schoolboys, took over the pitch. I grabbed my camera and I ran after them and went in the middle of their game. This is why you got to go to the Met. You see all these. The Met is lit by skylights. There's skylights all over the place. The light in the Met is brilliant. And this is what happens in the Met. And don't be afraid to jam things over in the corner of your picture. You know, even though the center of the picture is maybe the most interesting, jam it over in the corner, and that becomes the interest. This is another one of the hot spots. If you got nothing to do and you're bored shooting, go down to Union Square. It will happen. Something will happen, because Union Square, they didn't put the bars up yet, but it's a zoo. And you really want to go down there. This is a little further down. This is what Debbie was talking about before. I'm sitting at home. The temperature's 95 degrees. I'm going, what am I doing sitting here? There's got to be something happening in the city, man. We got to get some heat pictures. I went down to, my son went to NYU. I went down there, and there's the picture. You know, you walk around until you see something happening. And again, I collect things like this. I always find them interesting. You know, right now it may not be so interesting, but in 50 years, this will be an interesting photograph. Newsweek gave me an assignment to photograph the baseball strike. I said to the editor, I said, what's a baseball strike look like? They said, we don't know, but you always, you know, solve problems. I said, solve problems? I don't know if I can solve that. I went up to Yankee Stadium. I found these kids playing in a lot. And I asked the kid to just lie down there and put his glove down, and there it is. They didn't run that, but they did run another picture I took with a Holga. It was marvelous. Again, it's Christmas time. There are going to be 8,000 people over your house where you're going to be visiting people. Bring your camera, pay attention, and take pictures. I was taking pictures against a backdrop in my studio, and I asked the kids, I said, all right, I've taken enough pictures, I'm bored to tears, just play, have some fun. And, you know, all of this comes up, and it works. That is a real severe crop, but I just love the tones in that picture. I got a call from a guy, a friend of mine, who said, I want you to photograph this one job. I said, why? I said, why me? You used to be a photographer. He said, yeah. He said, but you know, I photograph cars. And he said, I want somebody that can understand people, especially creative people. So these guys were all doing creative works on the computers. I said, okay, fine. I said, well, I'm not going to light it. He said, what do you mean you're not going to light it? I said, I'm not going to light it. I said, I want one room that has a big window in it, huge window in it. We're going to move all the furniture. I'm going to put a black backdrop up on some poles. You're going to have them sit down on a stool, and they can do whatever the heck they want. I shot it with all natural light, and that's it. This is getting boring. I've seen these pictures before. This is where I came in. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.